shot of soul.
This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrat. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matt, I got to tell you, dude, what does that look like right there?
You got a little bass thumb going on.
Yeah, I don't even know what that was. It's been a while since.
How long has it been since you've had a case of bass thumb? Now, of course, with the meds you're on, you bleed if someone looks at you wrong.
Pretty much.
Your shins look like you've been in a MMA battle.
Yeah. I can't run into things. It's a bloody mess is what it is.
Have been fishing quite a bit. Actually filmed on last Thursday. I haven't been in studio since a one-on-one with Jeff Crete to follow up the Christie. I'm putting it out. I'm going to say it right now. These people want to know. The Crete will be out later this week.
Okay.
And I will tell you right now, and I will say this in the video before we show it, it absolutely sucked.
It was a little tough, huh? Little tough.
Now, we got great footage. Crete was great.
As always.
I performed to the best of my abilities. The fishing absolutely sucked.
Dude, it's April.
I actually told Dave Rush what the weights were. He's like, you can't put that out. And I was like, but it's really close. And we did get some bites, so I'm letting you know right now it will not be like a 45-minute deal. Crete and I both agreed that it was not a great one-on-one representation, but hey, we fished out of the conditions. It was blowing 30 miles an hour. No excuses, but we have excuses.
Okay.
And then yesterday, I fished against you, one-on-one Lake 10 Killer.
Yes.
And as you can see with Jeffrey's battle scars, they were biting.
Yeah, they were.
For both of us.
Yes, they were.
But we're going to have to wait until next week before we can tell the viewers what the results of that epic battle was going into it. For you, 0-7 as the underdog.
Yeah.
And I will say this to tease it.
Yeah.
You went to one end of the lake and did one thing, and I went to the other end of the lake and did the polar opposite.
I know. I was shocked, and I really was that you did what you did,
and I was shocked that you did what you did.
Yeah.
So next week that will be out. So there are 2 more one-on-ones in the books, and I'm supposed to fish against Bradley sometime this week. So it's about to happen. It's about to happen on the spawn. Like they are. Right there.
Yeah, 100%. The thing about it is, too, folks, I want to let everybody, this is something we have done for 8 years. This is not something that
we took last year off. We didn't get a chance to do it because I was fishing all the coastas and stuff. But dating back, this is the first one on film. Yeah. Fortunately or unfortunately, for me or you,
I had a
depending
blast.
On what happened.
We both had a blast.
How many of those... Here's a sponsor plug. How many of those big bite tour tubes did I have in the bottom of my boat when we pulled out of the water?
It was a pile.
It was. We actually have Greg Hackney on the show today. Great show. Looking forward to talking to Greg Hackney. And one thing I remember about Greg Hackney is when he catches them, it's usually a striking structure bug, or a rodent, something along those lines. But Greg Hackney is the master of building a pile, a Taj Mahal of used plastics over the course of the day. So as he comes off the water, we were on location filming, he's on a flipping bite, like a Texoma or something like that.
Yeah.
The man just goes through packages of rage bugs and rodents like fat kids go through packages of donuts.
Yeah.
Just tosses them on the floor. That was like the first time that I've had a pile of plastics afterwards that were just ravaged.
Yeah, it was quite the mountain of plastics. And here's something else. I'll tease this. When I showed up and you were walking around my boat, dude, I had the 2 rods that I was going to use pretty much all day long right on the deck.
Yeah.
It was like, there you have it. That's what I'm doing.
And
it's no secret.
You saw what I had. Now, you did see I had that one DT6.
Yeah.
That is the same DT6 that I have thrown all spring.
Really?
I found, remember we were talking to Fritz and he was talking about how it's hard to get consistency in wood.
Yeah.
Talking about the pose, talking about how Rapala did it a lot better with the DT series that he helped design and all that back in the day. Remember all that?
Yeah.
But he still said it's not as consistent as a plastic bait, a mold, something that you can 100% control just because of the density in it. Well, I found one of those DT6s that just, I mean, as soon as you start to turn the reel handle, the wiggle feels right. And I have managed somehow on 10-pound test, chucking it in the rocks for the last month and a half, fishing it a lot. I mean, this thing is going to get retired. I thought I'd lost it yesterday. I don't want to give it away. I only made like 10 or 15 casts with it, though.
Yeah.
I went straight Hallman on them yesterday.
You flipped all day long, and I pretty much cranked all day long. Now, I'll say this, too. I don't know how Matt's going to produce this, but I'm telling you right now, there is some good comedy in there with me. Dude, I got freaking wrapped up in the rocks and bushes and
it's called
just
getting snagged, wrapped up in the rocks.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've got this one crankbait. I don't know where I was going. Oh, I was going with the Witty Outdoors sent us both.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Now I'm stuck to it. They sent us the he sent us that kind of composite crankbait
Very
in a
cool
spring craw color.
crankbaits.
Well, now we have it's like a custom, looks like a man's baby -1 or kind of a wake bait. He says it dives about 18 inches deep. It's called the Witty -1, will run 18 inches deep as opposed to the one that he sent before runs 4. So Witty Outdoors, thank you very much. Cool little crankbaits. He actually signed this top one, so this will get some work this week because they are in that
mode
2 to 4 foot range all over the state with some stable weather. So
all right, folks, great show today. We're gonna have Greg Hackney on here just in a few minutes. I want to let everybody know tomorrow Steve Kennedy and a special guest, the founder and president of Gunpowder PR and advertising, is going to be on to talk about the industry, and then on Thursday we're going to talk a little bit about what could have been with Mr. John Cox.
With his year.
Yeah. So a number of things to touch on this morning. Then we'll take a break and come back with Greg. The Opens, they have been rescheduled.
Kind of.
They're going to try and get them all in, Matthew.
Yeah, so that was the word that came down last week that I heard through the grapevine, was that they're committed to getting all of the Opens in. Obviously, they had the first Eastern Open. There's only the Easterns and the Central, so 8 total, 4 in the East, 4 in the Central. The one Eastern Open is in, so they rescheduled Cherokee, which was supposed to be taking place in early May, I think, for October 29th through 31st.
Yeah.
Maybe a little topwater action on smallmouth there.
Maybe.
I don't know if they eat topwater there.
Maybe.
But, I mean, that would be prime time for that. Yeah. So then the Easterns look like Oneida in the beginning of August. I don't think that's a reschedule. Hartwell, September 23rd and 24th, and then Cherokee Lake, October 29th. Currently, tentatively, the Centrals, which I'm fishing, we have not had one yet. Yeah. Neely Henry is supposed to come up on May 21st through 23rd. That is still scheduled, but they do have a makeup date in October. They said they're kind of monitoring that situation. You have to remember there are a lot of international anglers that fish this. Yeah. And Canadians, well, they're international too. Strike that from the record. I'm talking about, can these people that don't are to the United States get through? If you're in a state, that you've got a lot of logistics. But tentatively, that's still on. If it is not on, If it gets postponed, which I think there might be a very good possibility it will, then Neely Henry will take place October 22nd through the 24th. The Arkansas River, right here in our backyard, is scheduled for June 18th through 20th. It is tentatively rescheduled for October 1st through 3rd. It's still on for June, but if they have to reschedule it.
I think that'll happen in June. And if it does, it's going to be a slugfest.
Yep. And then Rayburn, September 10th through 12th. And then Lake Louisville rescheduled for November 19th through 21st. So Louisville will then become the last Central Open. I have no idea how Louisville fishes in late November, but
probably pretty typical.
Hopefully we'll still have a May, June, September, November, but technically you could have October 1st through 3rd, or you could have September 10th through 12th, October 1st through 3rd, October 22nd through 24th, and November 19th through 21st. So if that goes down, you might have to find a semi-permanent co-host for BTL in the fall because I will be gone a lot. Now, for those guys who are fishing all 8, which is the other thing that was on, I mean, you have the potential for 3 tournaments in October.
Yeah.
3 opens, which would be Cherokee, the Arkansas River, and Neely Henry. But we'll see if that made sense out of that spaghetti mess.
Yeah. You cool with that?
I don't have any option to be cool. Well, I'm cool with it.
Dude, I know you can't control anything, but are you cool with it?
Yeah, I've talked about before. I mean, I excel in the fall.
Yeah, you do.
I really like the fall. I understand the fall fishing. For the last 12, 13 years, all I've been able to do is fish in the fall because I don't hunt and I've covered the tour. So I've really learned this area and region in the fall when most people haven't, which is why I'm getting my butt kicked and having some good days. But the consistency is not there in the spring in Oklahoma because I haven't had a decade of experience fishing. I've been covering it all over the country. I kind of know how to catch them this time of the year everywhere and don't really know how to catch them anywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you caught him when you went up against Christie, though. You knew how to catch him that day. He has no comment. Hey, by the way, the Michael Jordan documentary, Last Dance, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
How many episodes is that?
10.
Wow.
And they're doing 2 each Sunday. So the first 2 were out Sunday.
And it's on
ESPN.
I bet they are really glad that they had that in their
Well, they
back
decided
pocket.
they moved it up.
Yeah. That's what I said. I bet they're really glad they had that in their back pocket.
Yeah.
You seen all the MLF did a live thing from Gross Savant with Spore against the Cajun Baby.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they had the cameras in the boats with the split screens and all that.
Who won?
Spore. He won a gunny sack of crawfish.
Jeez. By the way, I'm at season 3 on Ozark, too. Have you watched that
How many
at all?
episodes? Oh, yeah. I watched that in one sitting.
It's really good. I just finished season 2 last night.
I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe that a lot of the lake footage on that was filmed on Lanier.
That is true.
Because of the tax codes in Missouri to film on Lake of the Ozarks, they do some of the landmark stuff there, but a lot of it is Lake Lanier.
It is. No, you're right. And by the way, did you see in Georgia, they're getting ready to open stuff up. Bowling centers, too.
Is that why there's a bowling pin on the desk?
You didn't hear my story, dude? I took that pin, and I had an old bowling ball, and I was throwing it out in the yard. Lawn bowling.
How did that go?
It was kind of goofy, actually.
Why is there a hole in the bottom of the pin?
I have no idea.
Are they all like that?
Yeah.
How often do you have to replace a bowling pin?
Some centers do it once a year.
How do you get one? Because this is used. What do you just walk up there and snag one before you leave?
The owner, I asked her if I could get a rack of pins. She said, yeah, no problem.
A USB-C. What are all those numbers around the top?
I have no idea. I don't know.
See, it says 2B3.
Yeah, I don't know. No idea. All right, coming back with Greg Hackney here on a Tuesday, everybody. Stay tuned.
The search for the best combination of value and performance is over. It ends with Elite TI2. From high-res views of active imaging to mapping in real time with Genesis Live, the high-powered performance of Elite TI2 continues to dominate. And now, wirelessly share sonar waypoints and routes between TI2 displays. Get up to $200 cash back when you purchase a Lowrance Elite TI2 or Hook Reveal display. Visit Lowrance.com/offers for details.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Luz doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need a 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it in sexy shad color?
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
I want to share to you a new product we got coming out from Sunline. This is the FC leader size spools that we have now. We've gotten a lot of requests for this. A lot of you guys use fluorocarbon for leaders only, myself included. And one of the problems you have is when you have a 200-yard spool, that might last you 2, 3, 4 years. You might even lose it before you even get done with the spool. So we've gone to a little smaller spool. These are 50-yard spool sizes. You know, that way you're not holding your line on forever. You can keep your line fresh, use it when you can, stores real easily in the boat. We got all of our popular line sizes that you're used to with our Sniper from 5 to 14 pound. If you guys are looking for a line that you're only tying for a leader, go check out Sunline FC Leader 100% fluorocarbon and give it a try.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday, kicking off the week. A great week set up. And we're going to kick things off with a guy that I really like. I mean, yeah. I remember seeing him for the first time. You know, he won was it the second Elite Series on Sam Rayburn? Is that right?
When was the Godzilla one? That was on Dardanelle, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was back when he
Two
was
things he
sporting
doesn't really like, though, I think. Technology and finesse fishing. But we got him on Skype. We'll see if it works.
Well, looks okay so far, so...
I think that's a fair assumption, is it not?
You can ask him that. All right, let's bring him in. Greg, you there, man?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, ask him.
Hear me?
Yeah, ask him, man.
Two of your least favorite things, technology and finesse fishing?
Yeah, I would say this is the first time I've ever Skyped in my life as of right now. So, I mean, I'm evolving, I guess, with the times.
Well, it looks good. I mean, shoot, you downloaded the thing, we tested it, it worked, and here you are, man.
I mean, I've been Skyping since last night. I loaded it up last night, and here I am.
All right, very cool. What we'll do is we'll talk to Greg for a little bit, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back with the instant feedback questions. So I think the obvious question right now, man, what have you been doing during the break? Have you been fishing a lot? Have you been turkey hunting? What have you been doing?
Really just been staying around the house, fishing a lot. Try to fish every other day. My youngest son and I, he schools one day, we fish the next, then he makes up the next 2 days, and then we fish. So we basically been fishing, I guess, every other day since the coronavirus, since the shutdown and all. We've been very fortunate here. They didn't shut down the ramps. Now there were some party goers early on, and they warned them that they would shut down all the waterways here if they didn't quit tying up tying boats together and all. And
yeah,
that seemed to have quit now. But I'll be honest with you, there are more people fishing now than there are more people fishing now than there would be during a typical summer. Our ramps are packed. It's pretty awesome. Fishing is a great release for all this that's going on.
Have you worked on anything on your game during this break, or has it been more about just fun fishing?
I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me to fun fish. I never go fishing that I'm not thinking about. Regardless, yeah, it's fun fishing, but I'm still, learning an area. It's been pretty cool because I've got to see, like, the part of the country I live in go through a bunch of different cycles. So we're already post-spawn. The majority, completely post-spawn. Like, I actually caught some fish yesterday that have probably been done a month.
Wow.
And so that's been pretty cool. But I still mentally go through that tournament process every time I go fishing, I'm trying to figure them out. What are they doing? And it's still fun. It's still fun, but like mentally, for the past, I've been a competitive tournament angler for the last 35 years, and so it's hard to ever get that out of your system. When I go just totally fun fishing, I'm targeting a different species. So, and that is fixing to happen. We've not done any of that yet, but the next thing on the list here is the catfish. We've been rigging up some noodles, and we're fixing to do some trot lining, and we're going to try to catch giant catfish out of the Mississippi River because we have some monsters that live here. And so that's the next thing on the agenda. Now, that will be just fun fishing.
When you're going out bass fishing, not in preparation for a tournament, do you sit out and tinker and rig and get stuff ready the night before, or do you just get out on the water and then, figure out your stuff while you're out there?
Yeah, now that's one thing that is different. I would typically, if it was before practice for one of our events or before the tournament, I spend a lot of time working on my tackle. And when I'm however it was rigged up yesterday, that's the way it'll be rigged up when I go the next round. I do that on the water because I'm not as rushed. Now that is one thing that's different. I don't have to be quite as efficient when I'm just during this type of fishing. So I just rig up in the boat.
Yeah, I've been playing a fun game recently because I haven't had any local tournaments or anything called How Long Will It Take to Get This Rod Out of the Box?
Right.
It's a fun game that you should play because you just put them in there without the socks on the end of the day. Then you start slowly pulling it out and you see which rod butt wiggles, and then that's the other rod you have to grab to pull it out so that he's not just a tangled mess.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's a much more laid back style of fishing.
Let me ask you this. I was with Bradley Hallman a couple days ago, and I asked him, and we were just smashing him. It was a crazy, insane day, one of the best days I've had in the water with anybody in like 10, 15 years. But I asked him the question. I said, do you have days like this? And his response was, you know what, man? I don't get to jack on them like we did when we were absolutely catching the snot out of them because I'm usually tournament fishing and I'm usually practicing to try and get ready for a tournament, and I can't wail on them just fun fishing. Do you find yourself during this time thinking the same thing, Greg?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So now the deal is typically when you find some, you would be looking for the next group. You don't fish that group that you find. So now when I go out there and I'm fishing and I find some, I don't leave them until they don't bite anymore. I'm just going to tell you, they get worked over. I promise you. There's some people getting to fish for some that have been caught the last couple of weeks. I promise.
What is, in your opinion? So let's say you're in your neck of the woods. You're going down a stretch. You're flipping. You get a bite. You get another bite. And then you sit there and you start drilling them. What percentage of the fish in that area, quality fish, do you feel like you catch? Like if there's 20 fish on a 100-yard stretch and you're sitting there trying to catch every one of them, just as a, I mean, obviously you can't know this unless the shock boat comes down there behind there, but do you think you when you're really trying, you catch all the active fish there, or you think you can always leave some?
I'll be honest with you, I undoubtedly hurt them pretty good because I'll go back to a place the next day and can't catch any hardly.
Wow.
Yes, work them over pretty good. When they're getting it, like you can, if you just sit there and you don't have anywhere to go and you don't ever crank that big motor and I just go round and round, when I leave a place, it won't be hard to get a bite there again.
I could just see Hackney. I could see Hackney idling out of him.
See, there's my game. See, so there's the tournament game. So my game is when I hit a stretch that has them, not to leave any biters there. That stretch, the next boat that comes along, I don't want that stretch to seem good.
You ever had anyone catching behind you that just really pissed you off, where you were like, damn, he went in, but like, I mean, obviously I could see you idling out of an area and a guy idling in and you've got those eyes, you're just chuckling. You're like, he don't know what I just did to that area. But have you ever had anyone later?
If you do what you're supposed to with a technique, it typically takes somebody doing something different. You only catch, so look at it like this. So if you're flipping a stretch, whether it be with a jig, a tube, or whatever it may be, you're only going to catch the fish that bite that way.
Right.
Okay. There's always some fish there that can be caught some way different. You know what I mean? But it would take somebody doing something totally different. If you do what you're supposed to down a stretch, and my son can attest to this because he'll tell me sometimes he'll say they were scattered out just far enough today that you could catch them all. So I typically do a pretty good job. So he's figured out fishing behind me. We don't do the same thing. He does something else behind me.
Hackney doesn't leave his kids in. He just drills them and says, watch and learn. That is cold hard.
He likes to be on that where we can cast. He don't like to flip and stretch it. He likes to cast.
There's never any time where you're like, hey, come up here and get the first shot at this stump. There's one sitting there. You're just like, hey, I'm fixing to catch all three.
Of that. So the shad have been spawning here. So we just pulled down on a place and we both can catch them every cast, So we've done some of that. But when it's tough and we have days like that, when I'm trying to figure them out now, I'm going to catch the one that bites. I'm trained to do that, So
ruthless.
And the deal is, it is in a way helping him because the deal is that's what I keep telling him. He's in a local bass club here, and he's going to fish with these. Just joined the local club here, and he's going to fish with these other guys out of the back of their boat. And I'm like, the deal is you have to learn to do something different. It kind of goes back to the co-angler days. I know we don't do that anymore, but always the guys that did the best out of the back of my boat were never the ones that tried to compete with me and do the same thing. They were always do their own thing. And it's a great tip because the best co-anglers I ever had were always that way. They were always gentlemen. They never got in my way and they did their own thing. And it was the ones that tried to duplicate what I was doing was typically the one because he just felt like he needed to fish in the front with you, and those were the ones you'd have the biggest problem out of. And typically those were the ones that didn't catch anything. The guys that always caught them out of the back of my boat just did their own thing. They did something totally different from the way I was fishing.
Interesting. Hey man, if Greg Hackney was on the deck of front deck of a boat, I'm not going up there. I'm giving him his space.
They just cast it up. They would just try to cast up there. They wouldn't go up there.
What did you do, Mark, when you fished Oneida, the last elite that ever had co-anglers? Wasn't it ish like frogging and flipping and you were just hucking a spook out in the middle of the bay?
The entire time.
just out the back, humming a vixen out the back of the boat in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you got some pretty good stories back in those co-angler days. Did somebody that you fish with actually try and compete with you? I understand the competitive nature of everybody, but can you recall any story where the guy or girl in the back of the boat was just extremely frustrated because they weren't able to catch any fish or they were just pissed off?
Really? You're asking me that? How many fishermen do you think fish in the back of my boat were frustrated?
All of them.
All of them.
But what? I mean, you got to have a story about like the one guy who kept insisted on competing with you.
know,
That's
come
what I'm
on,
saying.
dude.
Like, there's a difference between flipping behind Greg Hackney and then trying to compete with Greg Hackney.
Yeah,
flipping.
you got to have that mindset.
Yeah, you would have an occasional person like that, but not many. Most of them are pretty good, pretty good guys. The biggest thing was, so this is the deal. I think a lot of guys like I said, that have done well as co-anglers figured that out. If they made their partner fish defensively, they were not going to have a good day. So it was best to let off a little bit on the guy in the front and let him do his thing, and then you do something else, because the more somebody was aggressive out of the back, the more aggressive I would be out of the front. And the more defensive I would fish and the way I would position the boat, and the deal is my job in the front of the boat was to catch them all.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, not to hurt anybody's feelings and all, but that's what you got to expect. If that guy in the front is doing his job, it should not be easy for the guy in the back to catch anything. I mean, because that guy in the front, his job is to catch them all. I mean,
it's a good point.
Unfortunately.
I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way.
No,
but I mean,
no.
That's what it is.
Yeah. No, after this section of the interview, I realized that in my tournaments, I have not been doing my job in the front of the boat then.
Wow. All right, Greg, I want to talk a little business, because I think it's very, very cool that you have established and really worked hard to get your title sponsor now in Academy. How did that whole thing come about, and how important is that for you for the future and really for your sponsor lineup?
So this is the deal. I was one of Academy's, so I have 4 children, and I was one of Academy's biggest, one of the biggest shoppers at Academy before that deal came around. The cool thing about Academy, even before the, being my title sponsor now, is their prices. Again, we go through lots of hunting clothes in my house. Kids are growing, a lot of tennis shoes, a lot of everything. And their prices, honestly, they beat everybody else's. They have a huge fishing tackle selection, hunting stuff, and I just shop there a lot because, like I'm telling you, I'm buying for a large group of people, and so it was just a perfect fit for me to shop there. And so I'll be honest with you, the whole Academy deal and Greg Hackney, came about through Lose and Strike King. I mean, they have a huge relationship with Academy, and that's really how I got my foot in the door there, and they were really the ones that opened that door for me. And it's really been, a blessing, especially during these times that, you never know what's going to happen in the sport of bass fishing. I have had lots of changes, and, I'm really hoping this whole Academy deal, I align well with that. And again, and it kind of goes back to my fit with Academy is, I'm a bass fisherman, but I'm also a cat fisherman, a saltwater fisherman. Academy's big up and down the coast. I've always bought a lot of hooks, sinkers. It's just a great place to shop for that stuff. And of course, now you can shop online, with the stay-at-home order, you can shop online at Academy. Or the other cool thing is you can order it at the store and pull up at the front door, and they'll bring it out and load it in the car. So, it's just a fit. Academy is started in Texas. Texas and Louisiana is really where it, had its stronghold at the beginning, because that's where Academy started. And, of course, now it's expanded all over the United States. And again, it's just nothing beats Academy's prices, and that's always the big reason I shop there, because the prices were so much better than everyone else's.
Very cool. Now, let's talk a little MLF, and what are your thoughts? I know the organization is doing everything they can and working very hard to try and get as many events in as possible, and hopefully you guys will start fishing in the month of May. But now, and Matt, we didn't mention the cancellation of ICAST. What are your thoughts on getting these events in, and are you cool with fishing in the fall, or is this a situation where you think you might have back-to-back weeks, or it doesn't even matter? You're just going to do whatever you need to do. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of like, we're in a weird situation where we just got to do whatever we can do. So if we need to fish in the fall, that's fine. If we need to fish them back-to-back and fish 3-4 weeks in a row, whatever. I'm for doing whatever, because we really need to get back going. We almost fished another event almost squeaked in another one right before everything got shut down. The cool thing about our format at Major League Fishing is that we don't have to group a lot of people together. Our live and our television as our main two, is our resources for Major League Fishing. And so we can stay away from the public. We'd even come up with the deal that we would have the same boat official for the entire week. So we were not around multiple people. We can stay, apart. So we have a lot of options with that once the country gets back started that, we just have some pluses that we can do this easier than, say, other tournament trails or people that are having weigh-ins because we're wearing all the fish in the boat. And but whatever we need to do to get back started. But in my mind, I'm thinking 30 days out, middle of May, we probably get back started. That's kind of the way it's looking. They keep talking every time I read the news. Every morning they keep talking about, they're ready to open the country back up. And I just feel like that we're one of those sports, and the way that we play our sport is that we can open back up pretty quickly, because we're not grouping people together. And it is, so the deal about ICAST, there won't be any big functions like that throughout ICAST, sporting events. A lot of things that would group people together will not take place, probably till the fall, maybe at the soonest. Now, I hate that, but I actually was on the phone yesterday with David May at Strike King, in that they're going to send me some of the new product, and we're going to shoot some videos. I'll tell you what, it's actually going to be in a way better. I'm going to get an opportunity to test a lot of this stuff, and then put it out there before ICAST would normally be. So the consumers are going to get a chance to see it tested, and so in a way we're just going to work around that, but we're going to get all these new products out there to everybody and give them an opportunity to see them, when the time comes.
I'm curious, the TV show that Strike King and Lou's puts out, how much fun is that, and how much work is it?
It's a lot of work on their production crew, but it's a lot of fun, man, because I'll be honest, it's a tight group of guys. The whole Strike King Lou's team, we do have a lot of fun together. I filmed with Todd Castledine back earlier in the year, and it's one of the funnest trips I've been on in recent times. It was a lot of fun.
Where'd you film that at? Can you tell us?
Yeah, we were at Gros Savant, and I had actually filmed a mat flipping show there the day before with Strike King's new punch bug. And then Todd and I got to fish together the next day. It was the first time we had fished together, and it was pretty cool. It's informative, but yet it's a good time.
Very cool. Can't wait to see that one. All right, man, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break and then come back with questions from the fans on the instant feedback. And we'll get that cranked up here just in a few minutes. So everybody, Get your questions in on the instant feedback. We'll be back in a minute with Greg Hackney. Everybody stay tuned.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Blue Water by TH Marine. Offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a Spro bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done. While I travel the country on the Bassmaster Elite Series, I simply can't let the weather be the reason I don't win $100,000. That's why I use AFCO clothing to keep me warm, dry, and protected from whatever Mother Nature wants to throw at me. My season depends on it. My career depends on it. AFCO, any fish, any water.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
The Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swim-On is a very unique bait, and it's got a full body but with ribs to give it a bigger profile but not more plastic. It's got a jointed tail that gives it a lot of action, as well as this up and down crawl type trail with holes and ribs in it, so it creates a bubble trail almost. This bait is supposed to be fished upside down or vertical like this on a grate for a chatterbait. I prefer it on a swim jig as well, but you can also cut it down and put it on the back of a finesse jig. You know, flip it around for some spotted bass or flipping docks. Anytime you want a small, compact, little trailer for it, this is great for it. So check out the full lineup of swim-ons at bigbitebaits.com.
All right, we are back with our special guest, Greg Hackney, and we are ready to go to the instant feedback. A ton of questions. I'll try to get to as many as I can. You're going to kick things off, Matthew?
Yeah, I have a question for Greg Hackney about girth. Okay, dude, you're I've always wanted to ask this. So you take a look at the jigs that you design, your flipping hooks. And I understand you got the flex and all that stuff on it, but dude, the diameter of some of the hooks that you offer with your name on it on the market are intimidating for the average man. I mean, it looks like it looks like you just like took to it. They're thick. They're very thick. Walk me through that. For the I mean, you can just Google them, like, do Greg Hackney heavy cover, and you look at the diameter on the flipping hook and then the jig that you have. Walk me through why it's that diameter.
Well, really, I know the exact hook. The 4 and the 5/0 is heavy, but it's the 6/0 that looks intimidating.
Yeah.
But the whole deal with those hooks, those sidewalk style hooks, are they have an extremely sharp hook point. You just don't want any flex. I hate to say that, but when you're fishing, with these big rods and these low stretch lines, if that hook flexes at all, it will cut a hole in that fish's mouth. And if it doesn't flex, wherever that hook is, it just pops right in. And so a lot of times what people weren't understanding, when you catch a fish out on the edge of the mouth, it's because that hook had flexed a little bit and cut its way out there before it stuck. So, because most of the time when a fish gets a bait, it's completely engulfed. But when he's caught out towards the edge of the mouth, the hook didn't get hooked till then. So with that strong hook that doesn't flex, it just has a tendency to hook those fish a lot deeper in the mouth, and so you get a better hookup ratio and you don't lose as many. And I'll be honest with you, and you need to almost tie that big rod and low stretch line to a scale and see how much pressure you're pushing, because typically what happens, the harder a fish pulls, the harder you pull against it. I mean, your adrenaline's pumping, you got this big fish hooked over in a mat or some bushes, and you're putting too much pressure you don't even need to put, but, you can't control that because, again, your emotions are blaring, your adrenaline's pumping, and you're jacked up. And so that hook is made for that moment when you get jacked up.
So how did you test that? Like, did you actually did you go through a bunch of different gauges and kept going, I need it thicker, I need it thicker, I need it thicker? Did you?
No, actually that hook was developed in saltwater. That hook was already out. And then it actually came silver, and it was a saltwater trailer hook. It's where it started. And and I was flipping with it, because I went to the saltwater market. The first hook I actually used was a tarpon hook that was used to tie saltwater flies on, and I went through that, and then that just got me, and that was actually showed to me by Gary Klein, the fly hook, and it was a saltwater fly hook, and so after that, well then how a fisherman gets to thinking, I started going through all the saltwater hooks. Well, they were made for that high pressure, and and that's where that hook came from. It's not a new hook. It was just a hook that was brought out of one market and put into the freshwater market. But that's how, that's how that hook came about.
Cool.
There you go.
Very cool. All right, let's go to the instant feedback. Scott in Indiana wants to know, post spawn, he said you got the toad buzz and a swim jig. What conditions dictate starting with one over the other?
Oh, so the deal at home is here's what made that clack and buzz bait so good. These fish have been the shad are spawning in hydrilla. All right, so we have no winter, so we had no vegetation die-off. This hydrilla is almost matted to the surface, and so I just noticed that clack and buzz bait would draw those fish. Eat with the shad spawn would draw them out of that grass and get them to hit. Where a regular buzz bait, they would not hardly pay it any attention. But the headbanger, and when I catch them, they're big ones, or they're better than average. They were better than average fish. And it was, basically it was showing them something different. So the deal here has been, I've been like the ones on the edge of the grass, we've been catching them on a thunder cricket with a rage swimmer on the back and a white hack attack swim jig with a white rage crawl. And so the deal is, like, during the shad spawn, you need multiple different baits. You need a spinner bait, you need these other baits. And the deal is when you're fishing for the same fish and you're making repetitive casts to the same area, you just keep changing baits. And what I noticed was when you first pull up there, the thunder cricket was the best. And you can catch them, and then they quit, but they're still feeding. You see them feeding. Then I can change to the swim jig, and then to the buzz bait. So basically what I'm doing is just going through the whole gamut. And just showing them something different. Once they get acclimated, it seems like they get acclimated to one lure after a while. You show them something different. And so that's the reason to have that. Other lakes in the country, a square bill, of course, a swim bait, a rage swimmer on a bladed hook has been big in these same places because we're throwing it in vegetation. But regardless of where you are, shad spawn can be on concrete, can be on clay banks. They spawn on shale beds on the Tennessee River. I like to have a whole selection of baits so that I can show those fish something different. Because, again, a lot of times you're throwing on the same place over and over. It's not like you're just going down the bank and fishing miles. You're fishing a specific spot where, the shad spawn will be everywhere. But there's always a specific spot where those fish are bunched up feeding on those shad. And so you just need several different lures, to show those fish something different.
All right, very cool. Joe in Oklahoma wants to know, what knot are you using when you're flipping with fluorocarbon?
Most of the time with fluorocarbon, I just use a Palomar knot. And the reason for that, now I snell the hook on braid, but you have stretch in fluorocarbon, and I don't find that doesn't seem to be quite as big an issue. I don't miss a lot of fish. So this is the deal. Flipping in shallow water with braid, I'll miss more fish than I ever would on fluorocarbon. Okay, it's just because there's no stretch and there's not a lot of water and everything happens so fast. But on fluorocarbon, you have that stretch, and so I don't have that or feel that need to snell the hook to catch extra fish like I do. So I just tie a Palomar. I tie a Palomar on everything other than when I'm snelling a hook or tying an open knot on a popper. I just use a Palomar. The deal is, I see people tie all these crazy knots on fluorocarbon, and the reason is they're not tying a Palomar properly. If it's tied properly, it's 100%.
Okay.
The problem is it's hard for people to tie it without crossing the lines, and it burns the knot. And I've been tying it for the last 45 years, so I don't have any issues with it, and I don't have any break-offs.
So proper steps. I mean, if you can walk through without show, just kind of walk us through the proper steps.
So the biggest mistake that I see most people make with tying Palomar, the first mistake they make is they run the line through the eye, then turn around and run the tag in back through to double the line. Okay, I never do that. Regardless, even if I'm tying it on 6-pound test on a drop shot, I bend the line and run it through doubled, and then keep my finger between the doubled part. So when I wrap it around to tie the knot over the hook, the lines never cross. So if they cross, that's what burns. So you want them to lay flat on one another. There'll be 2 lines and 2 lines, and they lay flat like this, and then you don't burn the knot. But when something about when they run the line through and run it back through the hole, it's hard to keep it from doing that. I double it and run it through, keep my finger in it. It's also the fastest knot you can tie. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have time out there when I'm fishing, especially in an event, to do all that wrapping and tying and,
So you want it to look like basically then you want it to, the way you want it to look like a hashtag on top of your eye.
Hashtag. As long as it lays like that, it's tied properly. Now, on a rare occasion, when I pull that knot, if I felt like it pulled funny, I'd cut it off and retie it. I don't take a chance with it, but it has to be tied properly. And again, I can tie it in my sleep. I've tied it so much, but that's the biggest thing. When you run the line through doubled, keep your finger in the end that came through the eye, where it's hooked around your finger, and that'll keep you from crossing the 2 lines when you wrap it back around the hook. I probably need to do a video of that, to explain it, but I see these guys tie these knots that got 3 tag ends, and there's no way I could fish with that. There's no way I could have that. It almost looks like they've tied another bait. Especially, I've even seen them tied on braid. It looks like they got a fly tied on the end of their jig after they get through because all that fuzz sticking out the other end. Mine's got to be clean.
For the average guy, then, let's say you've got your setup is right, you're matching everything, you're not fishing like crazy zebra mussel stuff. I mean, you're just flipping hardcover, but not, and you've got a good knot, everything's set up right. How often should you break off on the hook set?
Never.
I
couldn't even tell you the last time I broke off on the hook set unless something cut. The last time I broke my line, I got cut off. On fluorocarbon. I never break my line. And so this is the deal. I typically don't use bigger than 20 on fluorocarbon. If I can get by with 25 or 30-pound fluorocarbon, I need to be throwing braid, okay? So I do all my flipping with fluorocarbon with 20-pound Gamma Edge fluorocarbon, a 7.6 Hack Attack flipping stick. I don't have that issue, and I lean on them. You should never break off. Honestly, you should never break off. I'll be honest with you, my hook set it may not be the hardest one out there, but it ranks up there. You know what I mean? I'm bringing it. I promise you, I'm bringing it.
He's bringing it.
And you should never break off setting a hook unless you get cut off. Now, you can get cut offs. That's different. Get around a dock post and then there's a lot of force with you pulling. The fish is going one direction, you pulling the other, and you can get cut off. But it shouldn't break in a knot. If your line breaks, it should break up the line. And you'll know if it broke in a knot because it'll have a kink in the end. If you pull down to where your line broke and there's a little J hook in the end of it, that means it broke in the knot.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so basically, if you're breaking off, you're either A, your setup isn't right, you're doing something, you're either overpowered or underpowered on your line.
That's it.
Or B, you're lazy because you didn't retie after you got hung up. Or C, you suck at tying your knot. All 3 variables that you can control.
Matt, you nailed it.
All right. That's really, really good. Good stuff. All right. Andy in Indiana wants to know, are you running 2 additional, or actually 1 additional battery because of all the electronics on your boat? In other words, your 3 for your trolling motor and then 2 additional, or is everything just running off the 1 battery?
All right. So the deal is because of the Major League Fishing format, and I'm never running any aerators, I'm still just running 1 battery. On my electronics. And I will be honest with you, the live scope is the greatest thing to ever come out in technology. It's insane to look at a live scope, the Garmin live scope, and it pulls a lot of juice. But I find that I don't have that issue because I'm not running my aerators, because we release all of our fish. And so, but there is without a shadow of a doubt, I would be running 2 batteries on my electronics and my cranking motor if it wasn't for that. Another plus is the new Mercury. The alternator is so much stronger than it was on previous Pro XSs. Ever since they came out with the Pro XS and the 4-stroke, I mean, every time I'm running, I'm looking at my smart gauge, it's 14 volts. It just seems like it charges everything back up. But yes, without a doubt, I would recommend running traditional tournament live wells. You have to have 2 batteries.
All right. Bryce in Illinois wants to know, what's your approach when you fish the northern part of the Mississippi River?
Basically the northern part of the Mississippi River is just like the southern part, in that, now I say that the in-between part is totally different, but the part like at the mouth of the river where it dumps in the Gulf is so much like fishing in the La Crosse area. And, Pool 7 is as far as I fished north on the Mississippi River. I know the pools on above that are similar too, but really the big thing there is current. Most of the time when we go to the Mississippi River, it's in that part of the country, it's past the spawn. So then those fish are current oriented. They like to set up and wait. Those largemouth there are short and chunky, because they like to sit by a place where the current's coming. The smallmouth there seem to like more of the stronger flow, where the largemouth just want to be sitting just outside of that flow and waiting for that bait to come to them. They're not chasers. They like to sit and wait. So, the big deal when we go there, grass points, current, undercut banks, it's just really old school river fishing there. It's awesome. That's one of the, finest places we go. There are so many fish and they're so aggressive, which honestly is just like going to Venice at my house. Those fish are built the same way. They look just like the fish in La Crosse. They like to set up on current and they are aggressive.
All right. Neat stuff there. All right. A couple of questions here. Kind of the same thing. When you get a fishing violation or when you get a fish violation, whatever it's called, and it's for 2 minutes.
A penalty.
When does the clock start?
The clock does not start till the fish is weighed. So, it'll start immediately when it's a undersized fish. That's typically the ones you get most of those. You swing a little one over in the boat and he falls off in the boat. But on a scoreable bass, the clock does not start. The fish has to be weighed first, and the weight has to be punched in the score tracker, and then the penalty starts. We all would like for it to start before then, but it doesn't start till you go through that process.
When you're in the penalty box or when you're in that penalty situation, can you do anything to your tackle, or do you just have to sit there?
You can't do anything. You can't do anything that would be an advantage to you, like eating something, getting a drink, working on tackle. You can't do anything. You just have to sit there for the full 2 minutes.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
It's not a fun time, especially. So probably the worst one, we were in northern Michigan, and I swung, and I had a 5-pound smallmouth short string me on a square bill with like 3 foot of line. I knew it was going to come off. So I just swing, just the instant he gets it, I swing him over in the boat. Of course, he comes off, bounces across the floor, and goes out the other side. So I lost the fish and got the 2-minute penalty. And that's not only happened to me, that's happened to some other guys too. When, one comes off in the air and he bounces and goes out of the boat, you still get the penalty.
You don't have the line breaking penalty in the BPT, do you?
No, they pretty much got rid of that across the
There used to be one where if you broke a fish off, which we talked about, Greg never really had an issue with.
Well,
but there were guys.
I think there was some discretion there on once they figured out it was hard to tell what kind of fish it was, because when we go north, there's so many chain pickerel and northern pike and muskie, you break off a lot. And, and sometimes they kind of look like a bass when they come up and get a frog. You know what I mean? There was not too much gray area there, so they got rid of that penalty.
You like fishing for those things? I mean, everyone's seen your shows and multi-species. You like big stuff that fight with teeth. I mean, you like to fish for the muskie and the pike. You ever had a day where you just went after those?
Yeah, that's the other thing. I've had some days at La Crosse, Wisconsin, when it was cloudy. It's the most insane thing ever. There are so many, chain pickerel and northern pike on the Mississippi River. They are a blast to fish for. And I'm that guy that goes down and I look over and here they're referred to as shoe pick, but a grinnell or a mudfish, it's hard for me not to flip to him. He needs my cricket. Like deep down inside, I am a tournament angler, but I am a fisherman at heart. And, I like to feel stuff bite. I like to set the hook.
So like when the big alligator gar come up next to the boat and stuff, you're like picking up a topwater and flipping over just to see if you can get it to pop off on it?
Yeah, I'm guilty.
What's the craziest thing you've ever caught, like practicing in the tournament? Like,
So let me tell you, the craziest thing that has ever happened to me in a tournament was the last time we were at the Sabine River, and I found a barge that literally had 1,000 bass under it, and so I start there the first morning of the tournament. It's insane. They're not any big ones, but there's 10 pounds worth. You can catch 5 out of them that weigh 10 pounds, which is a huge stringer. So I pull up there, and I got a bite or two, and they're weird, and they wouldn't come out from under the barge, and I can't figure out, and I go all the way around it, back and forth, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I know how many fish are under there. And I fire a KVD popper up there next to it and come right down the side, and I see a fish coming behind the bait, and I'm like, wow, it's giant. So the first thing I think it is, I'm like, well, it must be a giant garfish. And it was like a 6-foot bull shark. And it just comes cruising out from under the deal and comes up to my, it comes up, and I see, and I lift my popper out of the water, and it just kind of stuck its head out of the water and opened its mouth and went back down. And so I rolled. I figured out that was the reason that those bass wouldn't. And that is not an uncommon thing to happen. It was uncommon there, of course, in that tournament. But like I see that a lot here at my house in the summertime. Like a lot of the marsh here that's full of bass, you'll be going down a grass line, you'll see 4 or 5 foot. Most of the time, you never see big bull sharks inside the marsh, but you see lots of 4 and 5 foot ones. And that's the thing here. Like even at Venice, like the bass is not the apex predator. He's on the food chain, and the deal is, here he never outgrows the food chain. A bass would never grow large enough here to be bigger than to get eat. Like they catch 100-pound garfish here, they'll be full of 5-pound redfish. I mean, they suck those bass up like so bass always tend to here to be under something, matted up close because of that reason. But that was probably the most awesome thing that but I rolled. I never went back there actually after that, but I couldn't understand why I was like, what's wrong with them? There are thousands of them under there, and they were easy to catch. And when the shark swam out from under the barge, I knew then. I was like, well, I would be hiding in the house too, because the big bad wolf is huffing and puffing.
Wow, that's a great story.
Wow. I can't believe I hadn't heard that story before.
Yeah. It was the first. I mean, I'm like, I'm gonna run up here and catch me 10 pounds. Like I thought I was worried about somebody finding it, and nobody stopped. Everybody ran by it, and I was like, oh wow, I can catch 10 pounds. That was, the deal is 10 pounds at the Sabine was huge, and I caught one. I caught one there that morning and left. After that happened, I knew then what the deal was. I've seen it the same thing in Venice in a pond. I went in a pond one morning when the tide was wrong and shelled them, and I was like, man, I'll catch 100 in here this afternoon when the tide goes out. Went back there in that afternoon, the water was down, couldn't get a bite, couldn't figure. Started seeing mullet run, and it was a 40-pound Jack Crevalle. I ended up catching it on spinnerbait. Was in there feeding, and the bass were hiding. I mean, that's the way it is here, man. I mean, everything eats everything else, so that's pretty common here for that to happen.
A 40-pound jack is like that. You had your hands full with that one.
2 miles. I'm pretty sure we chased it for about 2 miles. It went out and went in a pass, and it was going back to the Gulf, I guess. And finally, I fought it so long, I'm pretty sure it didn't make it. I had to fight. I just had it on 20-pound test, and I fought it so long. When it finally came up, we were both completely exhausted, but had to chase it with the boat to keep it from spooling me.
Wow.
Palomar knot.
Yeah, it was on a Palomar knot.
Wow. All right. Mark in Minnesota wants to know about the new Strike King punch bug. How do you rig it? And what situations does it excel?
All right. So the biggest thing about the punch bug is it looks like a small piece of plastic. You know what I mean? So it penetrates easy, but the deal is it will hold that big hook that Matt was talking about. It will hold the full 6/0 hack attack hook perfectly. And all the appendages lay back on it. It is ringed, so the other deal with it is it's super soft, but yet you can just punch and punch and punch, and that big hook never punches through it until you catch one. I've never used a bait that goes through the mat as easy as it does. So I'm able to get by with a smaller weight, which in turn will make you catch more fish because, that big weight is notorious for losing fish. So if I can get by with a 1 ounce instead of an ounce and a quarter or ounce and 3/8, I'll catch more of the fish that bite me. But the cool thing about it is just how easy it goes through and how efficient it makes you. So now, for me personally, anytime I'm punching mats, it will be the only thing I throw. There would be no reason to throw anything else over it. I mean, it's because like a rodent being one of my favorite flipping baits, the only drawback to it is fairly thin. And that big hook, if you're punching hyacinth mats or stuff where you're pulling back and forth a lot through there, it causes the hook to go through it. And with the punch bug, you will leave the same punch bug on there till you catch one. The hook will not come through it until you get a bite. And it's kind of the best of both worlds because the hook's not punching through it, but yet the bait is so soft, the hookup ratio on it is great because it's made of the tour grade plastic. So it's that real soft plastic, but because it has the rings on the outside of it, the hook won't come through. Just punching heavy mats. So it's going to be anytime I'm using a big weight and punching through stuff, it's going to be my only flipping bait. And it comes in all the great colors, just like the rodent and the rage bug, and it's scented with the coffee scent, so it has it all.
If you could flip one type of cover the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I could pick, man. I like bushes, cypress trees, mats. I love cattails. Yeah, I just love anything thick. I love to flip deep grass. Yeah, I don't know if I could pick that.
You got to pick, girl.
Probably, honestly, if I had to pick, it would be something matted. Blown up shallow, where it's just a fight. I don't know. I like them all. So the cool thing about where I live at, flipping is a year-round 365. There's always a fish here under a mat. It doesn't matter if they're spawning or what. There is always fish around my house under a mat. I mean, you always have to have an ounce and a quarter or bigger weight rigged up year-round here. You cannot survive here as a tournament fisherman without it. So it's not, like when I go fishing, I about have to fish that way.
So you fished an entire year before you turned pro, so to speak. Have you fished an entire year only flipping?
Oh, no.
No? Oh, I didn't know if you were one of those guys.
No.
Remember that guy in Florida who only threw the devil's horse? Like, that's the only thing he had thrown for 20 years. Like, they did a Bassmaster article with him. He had 3 boxes of devil horse in his boat. That's the only thing he threw, 365. I could see Greg being a flipper.
No. Here, the deal is if I could only have 3 baits, a frog, a flipping stick, and a square bill. Like, that's you could... so when I was growing up, those were the three deals that dominated. That's how you won the tournaments. I mean, there'd be a time when I'd have to be cranking, there'd be half a time when I'd have to be frogging, and then another time when I'd be flipping. But those were the 3 baits that that's, what I mean? Those were staples. Yeah, you could add a buzz bait into that, and you could add sight fishing into that at certain times. But like those, a frog, a square bill, and a jig. Those were staples. I could make a living around the house with that.
All right, Frank in Michigan wants to know, what is the best trailer spring, summer, and fall on a jig?
Wow, if I could only have one trailer, it would be a rage crawl, but I really don't on a flipping jig, a rage crawl, a KVD chunk, and that's honestly, and sometimes a rodent, and that's it. But a rage crawl would be, especially, anytime the water's 50 degrees or warmer. About the only time I put the KVD chunk on there is when the water's colder than 50 degrees. And when it's warmer than that, it's a rage crawl. And I put a rodent on there when I'll punch here in the wintertime with a jig. And to get that jig to go through easier, I put a rodent on the back. And a lot of times I put a baby rodent on the back. So there's not as much stuff sticking out, so it penetrates easier. Because even flipping mats, if I can get a jig through there, I won't use anything else. Because the deal is with a jig, it's not necessarily that it catches bigger fish than, say, a rodent, because I probably caught more 10-pounders on a rodent than I have a jig. But the deal is with a jig, if you can get them to bite a jig and it goes through the cover, you will catch more bites on it than a Texas rig. A jig just has a better hookup. You're just going to catch more of those fish. So, but yeah, that's about it. But a rage crawl, if I could only have one trailer, it would be a rage crawl.
What about a swim jig?
Shallow, the rage crawl dominates everything. A rage crawl, a rage menace grub, and a rage swimmer. That's the only 3 trailers you need on a swim jig.
There you have it. When's the last time you caught a fish, if ever, on a pork trailer?
Oh, wow, it's been a long time ago. I've had that discussion with Luke, while we've been fishing. I've reminisced a lot, him and I getting to fish. That's been the good thing about this quarantine. Him and I have got to fish a lot together.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time, but God, nothing, I'll be honest with you, nothing had that better action in the water than a pork frog. It just looks so natural. I mean, I even, like in the summertime, I threw dry rind because it wouldn't dry out. Do you remember the dry rind?
No, explain that to me. I've not heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So dry rind was basically a piece of leather that was like the pork frog without the fat.
Okay.
It had extremely crazy looking action. It was it looked more like a spring lizard on the back of the, because Uncle Josh made
Did it have a hole punch
lizard
in it?
Yeah.
In the middle? Okay. Yep. Now I kind of know what you're talking about.
But it was just like a piece of, and it could completely dry out and you'd put it back in the water and it would go back to working, and I did that. It had a great swimming action like a pork frog, and but it wouldn't dry out. Yeah, that was the only thing. I can't tell you how many pigs have dried up in on the back of my jig. I went through a lot of pork. You'd leave it hanging, you'd go to doing something else. The next time you turn it, a number 1 pork frog had turned into a 101.
Didn't they used to have so when I started tournament fishing, it would have been 1997. So
yeah, that was a good year for me.
Yeah.
You could still, pork was still viable then.
That was probably towards the tail end of it.
It was, but you remember I fished in the Assumption Bass Club where it was a jig with a pork trailer and a black grape red glitter Producto paddle tail worm with a half-ounce lead and a true turn on high vis big game. 5,600. They had just come out with the 7-foot, not the pistol grip. And Harold Hampton and Louis Logan would lay the lumber to him with those 2 things. So now the seat is set. But I remember one of the things that I got one year as a gift was a satchel, a purse, a pork purse, to where after your pork, when you weren't flipping it, you could put this little bag around it and it would keep it moist.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I do remember that.
The pork saver.
The pork purse.
I think
what was it called?
It was called the pork saver. Or the
pig
that's saver.
What it was.
Yeah.
And it just fold right around the deal. Hey, I'll be honest, I remember throwing that Big Daddy chunk. I'd be like, I'm going to catch big ones. That thing was ginormous. I'd put it on the back of a 1/4-ounce jig. It would fall like it was weightless.
Mm-hmm. The big thing I always had trouble with is, do you go with the fat part up or the smooth part up when you're putting it on the hook?
I always went with the smooth part up and the fat part to the bottom because on that black and blue one, I wanted it to flash blue. It was black on top and blue on bottom, so I wanted it to flash.
Neat.
Yeah, the first big fish I caught in a tournament, big fish on the Arkansas River, I caught 815 black and black pig and jig. So the deal is my daddy and I would fish those big bass tournaments at Lake Ouachita, and they were always won with a pig and jig. So this was back before before we started, and always pig and jig. So we got to figure this, if we're going to be tournament fishermen. I'm 10 years old and we're going to be tournament fishermen. We got to have a pig and jig. And I'll never forget this. The first fish that I ever had to bite a jig was on a place called Woods Old River at Grady on the Arkansas River. And I didn't have a trailer. I didn't know you were supposed to use a trailer. It was a brown jig with no trailer. It was a 4-pounder. I rolled him over with a 5.3 rod, 5.3 pistol grip.
Wow.
Just a straight jig.
Just a straight jig. I was like, well, I'm going to tie this jig on because they catch them on a jig. Well, you didn't put a trailer on a crappie jig, so I didn't know any better.
Wow. That's
Dude, I think it's time. I think it's time to bring back the pork in 2020. I think you need
even sell it?
I think you need to revamp.
I don't even think you can buy any.
Uncle Josh.
Would that not be awesome?
Yeah.
If they rebranded
Well, they didn't
it?
stop biting it. You know, like many lures that we've had, they didn't stop biting it. Golly, in cold water. So how about this? Back when pork was kind of not going out, but like all these plastic trailers were coming out, even anytime the water was cold, I still went back to pork. I was like, well, you got to have pork when the water's cold. They'll bite this other mess when it's hot, but you got to have pork when it's cold. You know, because it's natural, it's scented, it's beefy. You know what I mean? They get it, it feels good. I'm like, and I would still, even during cold weather, always have a piece of pork tied on.
I would buy a can of Greg Hackney's pork for the fall. Come out, brand that sucker, put it in that salty brine again.
Yeah, pork candy.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
I would always taste the salty brine on my fingers after I put that stuff. Tasted good, little kind of formaldehyde-ish, but it was always delicious.
Yeah, you'll be lucky if you don't grow an extra eye.
All right, Kyle in Texas wants to know, when's the last time you threw a Carolina rig and what happened?
Oh, gosh. I will, that like, you know, it's been a while. It's been a while for me. I can't even remember the last time. Probably last time we were at Toledo Bend. I say that. I found a little hard spot that had them loaded up the last time we were at Toledo. But that ball and chain is my nemesis. Gosh, I hate that. I love a Texas rig, casting a Texas rig and dragging a jig out deep, but wow. And I think that's another thing that's probably went with the Carolina rig in a lot of places now, because instead of, like, if I pull up on a place I'm going to drag on, I throw a structure jig. I just have more confidence in a structure jig or you know, or a big shaky head or something like that, you know, seems to be. You know, I just don't drag that rig. Like I said, the last time I caught some fish at Toledo, so that's been maybe 4 years ago, Yeah, I just don't tie one on much. That's just not my gig. Never has been. I just never have liked it.
When you went to Falcon, did you throw it at all? Because I knew a lot of guys were throwing it then.
No, I threw a Texas rig. So when I won the East-West Fish Off there, I caught them all on a Anaconda Texas rig and a Series 6.
You're breaking Jeffrey's heart.
No, I swear I did not set that up.
No, I mean, it's no. It's still great. I mean, so how about this? I still carry weights, swivels, glass beads everywhere I go. I look at it every time I open up my terminal box, but I don't reach for that. I reach for this Texas rig.
Yeah. All right. JD in Illinois wants to know, what's the lowest water temp that you will throw a top water?
Probably 50. You know, I've caught them on a wake bait. Not the last time we were at the Classic with Hartwell, but the time before, I caught them on a wake bait in practice, and it was like 46 to 48. You know, reservoir fish bite a topwater a lot colder than natural lake fish. The water gets 50 degrees at my house, you're not going to catch one on a topwater bait. But reservoir fish don't seem to be affected like that. Like, so take Grand, for instance. You know, they bite, you know, that guy won on a tournament with a buzzbait there, and the water was like 48.
Oh, God.
I've seen that.
Are you seriously bringing that up, Greg?
There.
Jeffries legitimately talks about Jim Morton with a buzzbait in the snow. It is a weekly topic for Mark Jeffries for the past 10 years.
No.
We can't talk about a buzzbait, snow, or Grand Lake without Jeffries bringing up Jim Morton in the snow.
No.
Yeah, but I don't know but there's a lot of fish caught on a wake bait on all those Ozark lakes, you know, when it's cold. Yeah, you can just get by there. You know, I don't know if it's because the visibility is so good, you know, because the water's so clean in a lot of those places. But, yeah, definitely 50. You know, even on natural bodies of water, like right above 50, I've crushed them on a buzzbait in 55. I have not crushed them on a buzzbait in 45. You know, so but I'd say like 50 degrees is that number. And then a lot of times more, it's about the day. So if you're out there and it's, even if the water's cold, but it's warm and muggy and it's slick, they'll bite a top water. It's a lot of times it just goes by the way the outside feel is more so than what the water temperature is. But yeah, kind of 50 is that number for me that, after that. But anytime I'm on any of those art lakes, you always got to have a top water tied on because they'll come up schooling any time of the year. In the dead of winter, it doesn't matter, and you can always catch a big one like that.
All right, man. A couple more and then we'll let you go. A lot of people want to know about smallmouth fishing. How much do you like smallmouth fishing?
I like it. I mean, the only time I get to do it is when there's a tournament on the line. But yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy to fish for them. Most of the time, they're much more aggressive than a largemouth anyway. They're a blast to fish for. But they will burn you more so than a largemouth. Because a largemouth is such a resident. Smallmouth, he's a nomad. He's always traveling. I have had them to burn me, and then I've had them to be good for 2 days. I'd be blowing it out, and then the third day they just vanish. They burnt me more, and probably the biggest deal is it's not so much them as it is me because I don't understand them as well. Because the only chance I get to fish for them is during a tournament. It's not like I fish for them my entire life. It's just when we go to those lakes that have them.
Do you turkey hunt?
I had planned on to go on a couple trips during this quarantine, but they shut down places, and so I haven't. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big turkey hunter. I've never gotten into that because this is always our busy time.
Yeah.
And I'm typically, it's the bass rut, man. I mean, I want to be fishing during this period of time, and I always have too many irons in the fire anyway, and I didn't need another one. But this 1 year when I would love to be an avid turkey hunter would be right now. And but still, I'd rather fish. I'll be honest with you, I deer hunt a lot, and I spend a lot of time around a turkey. And I know a turkey hunter will tell you that's the smartest animal that ever walked in the woods, and if they could smell, they'd be unkillable. But, when I'm sitting on a deer stand with an orange vest, they don't seem to be real sharp. They also raise them in a chicken coop. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean.
All right.
So I'd shoot one, but if I got the chance and it came handy. But now I'd rather fish right now. I mean, it's the bass rut. It's the best time of the year to be fishing.
Great point. All right. Last question on the instant feedback. Heath in Memphis wants to know what your perfect catfish setup is.
Like I do most of my, so I have a camp on the Mississippi River, and that's where I do right now it's blown out and flooded, but I do most of my catfishing. I like a Carolina rig. I do like it for a catfish because I either put live bait on the back or a piece of cut bait. And, the deal is now it's about time for the catfish to start spawning. And so we're going to target flatheads. And to do that, you have to use live bait. And so here it's legal to use bluegill or goggle eye or green sunfish, and those make the best flathead bait. And that's out of all I like all catfish, but out of all of them, the flathead is by far my favorite. They are the best eating, and they're just a cool fish. They look cool.
You steak them? You cut them up in steaks, or you do the chunks and fry them?
It depends. The smaller ones, I like them filleted and cut up, and the big ones, you skin them. And then, that the thing about a flathead is over a blue cat, I don't like a blue cat very big. About 10 pounds, I don't want them much bigger than that because they get real greasy. They're really a fat fish, a really oily fish. But a flathead doesn't, because his staple is mainly live bait. He doesn't hardly get too big. The belly meat's good on a flathead. You just eat the whole thing. They have big cheek meat like a grouper. You skin the head out and they have 2 big pieces of meat on the head. And we don't waste any. I'll be honest with you, we've eaten a lot of fish during this quarantine. We're big fish eaters at my house, so we don't waste anything.
All right, man. Well, can't thank you enough for taking time out, and it sounds like you're having some really fun times with the family. And man, just be safe, and hopefully you guys will be fishing very, very soon.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, and hopefully we'll be talking about a tournament here in the next couple weeks.
Hope so, man.
All right,
hopefully. All right, take care, Greg. See ya. All right, there you have it. Greg Hackney. Some really, really cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, neat guy. The Bass Rut. You ever heard of that?
No.
I like it.
He's a badass.
He is. I mean, think about all the people that have been on the water wherever he's going. And I know you got the 6 feet thing, but when they see Greg Hackney coming in that wrap boat, I think they just
I would think
and get out of the way.
I would think, how would you like to be? Because we've got a lot of those big team tournaments around Oklahoma.
Yeah.
How would you like to be the guy that's paired with Greg Hackney, and you lose a big one out of the back of his boat in a team tournament?
In a team tournament?
Like, I think it would be. I think I would feel some pressure fishing team tournaments with Greg Hackney, because could you picture him like just kind of turning around and giving you that look after you jump off a 4?
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be very pleasant. Dude, he's one of those guys that when he is on the water competing, he becomes a different guy.
Yeah.
And then when he's off the water, he's totally different.
Well, let me ask you this. How much of the Mark Zona show, the shows with Greg Hackney, have changed his public perception?
I think it shows that he's not just who people think he is. In other words, there's a lighter side to Greg Hackney.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's made him so much more approachable to the normal guy who's like, okay, this guy doesn't mess around when it's time to go to work and do his tournaments. But then you watch the Zoda's Awesome Fishing Show with the sideways hats and the interviews, and it gets him.
But Mark
and his
brings
passion.
that out.
That's what I'm
part
saying.
Of Mark.
Mark's had an incredible ability. I think it's really helped his career, don't you? Don't you think it's made a lot of people that were fans of Greg Hackney super fans of Greg Hackney?
I think it's brought on new fans.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, he's done the same thing with Seth Feider and a couple other guys, but it's cool that Zoda, would you have known that side of Hackney existed to that level without the Zona shows?
Probably not.
Exactly.
Even being out there.
Exactly.
I mean, even when the dude won, you're still super intimidated by this guy, even when you interview him. But he never had that.
He's never been unapproachable. He's never been unapproachable.
He's been very, very available to the media.
Business-like, though.
Yeah. But he is probably one of the top 3 most intimidating guys on the water in this game. Super intimidating.
On the water? Yeah.
On the water.
Yeah, for fellow competitors to roll into an area with.
Yeah.
Who would you say the 3 are? Van Dam, Hackney, and Biffle? Nah, I think Biffle is past. He had his 3 decades run.
Yeah.
But I think people kind of think it's an honor to get yelled at by Biffle now.
Top 3, that's top 2. Who would be the 3rd?
Hackney, Van Dam.
Edwin, maybe? He has that persona.
Yeah, I think Edwin.
Yeah, probably Edwin. Over on the bass side, Matt Herron.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably up there, but I don't think he's top. Hackney's just
Clun. I don't ever see anybody. No, you don't see anybody. When was the last time you saw someone move in on Clun?
Nobody.
That's what I'm saying. Even if it's respect.
Denny, somebody mentioned on the instant feedback,
Right.
Brower was enormously intimidating.
You go back to that 90s heyday.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of guys who were really stay out of my water type guys.
Well, that used to be the norm.
That's what I'm saying. Like Klein. Remember the craziest? This is ironic. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Remember the craziest head-to-head? Remember the Dr. Seuss, the north-going Zacks and the south-going Zacks?
Are you gonna read the whole book like you did last time?
No, I can't read this one. But basically, the north-going Zacks goes with his north-going tracks, and the south-going Zacks goes with his south-going tracks, and they never go east and they never go west. They only go north and they go south.
Okay.
Right? And they met.
Uh-oh.
The north and the south. And they refused. Well, they built a city around him and an overpass, and they built it around him because they wouldn't ever stray out of their way. So it was a head-to-head. It was a stalemate.
This is a Dr. Seuss book?
Yeah, there's a lot of life lessons in Dr. Seuss, Mark.
Okay. Check that one out.
So
I had
anyway,
no idea.
so I would say the biggest stalemate, which is the word I was looking for, that I've ever seen, happened right, I guess it would be below the Paris Bridge on Kentucky Lake.
Who was that?
On the shell bed. You were there for it.
I don't remember.
The irony of this is...
Was Tim Horton involved?
No, it was Gary Klein and Boyd Duckett.
Really?
Remember they were casting Carolina rigs at each other's heads?
Oh, I do remember that.
They were slinging lead at each other. So one was set up on one side of the shell bed, one was set up on the other side of the shell bed, and they both thought that the other guy shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Do you not remember sitting there watching it?
I do.
I'm pretty sure that they went from like 1 to 2 to 3 ounce egg sinkers so they could get close, and they were hurling baits directly at one's on one side, one's on the other.
Yeah.
And they're casting at each other and then bringing the baits back past each other, both catching fish on it. And it was like that for a good half hour.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some intimidation tactics at play.
Ike and Ellie?
Ike's Ike. That's his thing.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody said Hackney, KVD, and Ike. I don't know. A lot of guys out there, though, but very few have that major intimidating factor. Agree?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just at another level.
Yep.
When you're in those top 3. All right. Great show, folks. Let's see. I'm looking at my list. All right. Tomorrow, we will talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame also. The press release came out. It was posted on Bassmaster.com. Brian Kirschel makes the Hall of Fame. Steve Bowman, Jay Yellis. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Lure. Yeah.
Hedden, Mr. Hedden. Yeah.
I was very happy to see Mr. Kirschel in the Hall of Fame.
And then I think Ron Linder was the other one.
Yeah, I've got the email. We'll pull it up. We'll talk about it more tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, tomorrow, Steve Kennedy. Should be a good one tomorrow. And then John Cox on Thursday. And then I've got a special show that is going to be pre-recorded for Friday. It's not going to be a best of. It's just going to be me interviewing somebody, and I'll announce that tomorrow.
Cool.
I'm trying to get a schedule worked out to where I can get that done. It's a West Coast guy. You know, the whole 6:30 a.m.
Yeah.
It's better if it's pre-recorded for them to work around their schedule. So, working on that. All right, everybody, make sure, once again, if you're listening on iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review, and subscribe to us over on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow. That's it. We're out of here.